Hello, this is Phyllis, and you have material and you want your material to look like this. I'm going to tell you the steps you need to do. This particular tutorial is all about cutting the material. You need to know what you're buying and how much to buy. We know that our material, usually you want to buy your material in a yard, and they have these quarters and eighth quarters. I just deal in yardage. I'm not a quilter. I like to make projects. So any material you buy, it's going to have a selvage. You can't use the selvage, but the selvage is there to help you have your material straight. And it's usually folded. Let me get this down so that you can see what I'm talking about. I forgot to adjust my camera. Okay. The material comes folded. This fold line, you can trust it to be straight. So you can line this fold line up straight on the line, and you can find out how wide your material is. It's usually going to come, almost always, it's going to come at least up to the 20, if good quality material will come past the 22 mark. If you're really, really prudent, if you need something that's, so you see, so this is doubled. This is 22, but it's really 44 inches because it's doubled. If your material you need has to be 45 or possibly 46, because you see the selvage actually comes up to the 23rd inch line. If I cut that right on the 23rd inch line, you're going to see a little bit of white there, but that'll be sewn into your seam allowance. So you could count on good quality material giving you a full, what I say, 46 inches. Generally, you're going to get, you're doing well to get 44. So how do I cut the material? What do I need to use to cut it? Where do I start? You want to look at your material and see if it has a pattern. This doesn't have a pattern. I mean, it doesn't have a directional pattern. These doggy faces, however, would look funny if I cut the material so upside down. So you have to pay attention to what direction, if you have directional material. How do you measure your material? You need a ruler. You can buy any ruler, and if you get a wide one like this, you can put, this is a bathroom handle, shower rod, like a shower handle. It's a suction cup, just suction cups on there. Well, I don't want to take it off. You put a little moisture there, put it down. Then you can pick up your ruler. Have you ever tried to pick up a ruler? It's tedious. You can do it, but it's tedious. This way you've got it, and you can move it around. It's awkward without it. That's a hint. There will be no charge. Okay. You also need to have a good pair of scissors. Fisker's brand scissors is a good, reliable, it's Fiskars, Fiskars. You want to label your sewing scissors because you don't want to use your scissors for anything but material. I have a backup in case I can't get my hands on that one. Also, when you're looking for sewing scissors, you see how the handles like this? This is going to make it lay flatter on the cloth, on the table to cut this way. Normal scissors, there's as much handle on this side as that side, and you just have to hold it in the air. But quick and handy way to cut material is with a rotary cutter. This is not a Fiskars, but I'm sure you could buy one that was a Fiskars. When you're looking at your folded material, you want to, this pattern that I have here, it has to be cut. Oh, I haven't told you about the cutting mat. Well, we'll talk about that. But it has to be cut 8.5 by 11. Now, if you're making up your own measurements, you want something bigger than that. When you figure out your measurements, make sure that you allow for the seam, because I added this panel here. Can you see that from the, no, you can't. Okay. Because I added this panel to this edge to line my panel, well, there's 1/4 of an inch coming off of this piece. There's 1/4 of an inch coming off that piece. And then when I put the two pieces together, it's going to take another 1/4 of an inch. You have to subtract those 1/4 of an inch seam allowances. But I've already done that. And I know that this panel, just the purple panel, has to be 8.5 by 11. Now, how am I going to cut that? I'm going to cut several of these. So what's the best way for me to figure this out? I've already figured that I can get 46 inches. No. Oh, no. Do you see? Now that is a rookie mistake. Did you see what I did? I didn't have the fold all the way to this end. I thought that was pretty big. Take back everything I said about getting 46 inches. This is going to be 44 at the most. You have to start down here. The reason I had it up like this is because when I get ready to cut my material, I want to be able to see these numbers. So I start with this. I start on that line. See how you can see the numbers better. But if you're trying to measure, like I said, that was a rookie mistake, and it's a mistake. As you can see, I still do. Let's start over, folks. This, at the most, is going to give you 44 inches. And that's with some of the white showing up in the seam allowance. But I'm not worried about that. I want my panel to be 11 inches by 8.5. I think I can get, it's folded, so I can get 11 inches and another 11 inches right there. Do you see that? That's 22 inches exactly. So I can cut out 4 panels. That's enough material to make two of these, because I need a front and a back. So I can do that. All right. So what the wise thing to do is to measure over 8.5, and then I've got enough material to make 2 patterns. I'm going to cut this whole strip by 8.5, and then I just cut this in half, and I've got 4 panels of the same size. Always measure twice. I'm checking to make sure, because that's another mistake I get. I look at the wrong thing. 8.5 by 11 is what it says. Now, how are you going to cut it? If you want to use a rotary cutter, you need a cutting mat. These cutting mats, this is a big one. I started out with a much smaller one and realized that I needed more space because I need to spread out. Can you see what that mat looks like? Yeah. And it has these diagonals. These diagonals come in handy later. In fact, I use this one to help me box corners. I'll explain that later. That's more advanced. We're just trying to get the material cut, okay? So you've got your mat, and I know that I want the full length. And so now I don't have to measure again. I want to be able to see these numbers. And because it's measured out each inch. See, there's 1 inch, and then there's a line. See these dotted lines? That's a 1/2 inch. I need 8.5 inches. That's another reason I need to expose this so I can see where the 8.5 is. And there's 8.5. I'm going to double check, make sure that this is lined up. I'm not worried about the length right now. I'm worried about the width. Okay. Make sure it's perfectly straight, lined up. And we're going to cut this material. Line it up there. Line it up there. My husband has a saying, measure twice, cut once. Making a mistake in measurements can cost a lot of money because a yard of this material will cost you anywhere from, well, it used to cost $7. Now with everything's going up, it's going to cost you $8 to $10, depending upon where you buy. Because this is nice quality material. You can buy junk at Walmart if you're just trying to make something quick and easy for yourself. But if you want a quality product, you're going to want to pay or find it on sale. I have the sewing place that I go to. They have sales on their fabrics every month. All right, that's 8.5. That's 8.5. Take this one doesn't have a lot. You see, this is a very dangerous edge. You don't want to touch that. So when I squeeze it, it pulls the rotary out. I'm pushing down on my handle to hold this material still, and I'm putting the rotary cutter right up against the edge of that. Don't go off the edge and hit this. So go slow, because if you get on this, you're going to dull your rotary. I've already dulled this one, and I'm down to my last one. And you're going to see what happens when you dull your material. See, it doesn't work. I have to go over it twice. Don't go back and forth, but simply go over it twice. If that doesn't work, you get your scissors out and cut it. If you have a sharp one, it works. Like I said, I'm down to my last one. I forgot to pick one up when I was out. Okay, now I hope I have 8.5 inches, 22 inches times 2. That's 11 times 4. Bring your material back. You always trust your straight edge. You saw me measure perfectly. Put your folded edge up against this. All right, put your folded up edge against here. Put your straight edge there. Put your other edge straight there. I want this to be cut off at the 22-inch mark. And you'll see, you have to cut the selvage because the selvage is not straight. And it's all ugly, as you can see. But even if I cut it off here at the 22, are you seeing that? Even when I cut it off at the 22, you're going to see some of that white. I'm not worried about that. Like I said, it's going to be inside the seam allowance. really should have bought. Okay. I keep a little box down here that I keep all my scraps in. Even little scraps, because if I make a dog bed, I need those scraps. Now this has just become my straight edge. Well, we can do it this way. I'll show you a little trick. Next, when I have another project and the material is not exact, and I'm going to have a little left over, I leave the excess in the folded size. But this is exactly the size we need, so there is not going to be any excess. I need this to be 11 inches. I'm going to see if I can press hard. Nope. Oh boy. What a thing to do a cutting tutorial and your tools aren't sharp. Now I have 2 pieces of material, 8.5 by 11. Let's measure this. Well, let's measure what's left behind. Let's see how wide this is. This is 11 inches by, look at that, 8.5. But you see, I've got to cut this fold because this is folded. I prefer this pair. I'm just going to use the fold as a guide. Now you can cut all your material this way, but you have to mark it. I highly recommend that you get a rotary cutter. If you have children, if you're homeschooling, this is a great way to teach math. Did you see what I did? I did multiplication. I did 11 plus 11 is 22, and 22 plus 22 is 44. And then how many pieces could I get out of that? I divided those into 4, and I got 11 each. Great way to teach math if you're homeschooling. Well, that is how you cut that part. But I'm going to have more than that. I also have the purple. Now I happen to have a piece here. Nope, that's not going to work. Okay. I have to do the liner. Now the liner is going to be a different size. I don't want to do the liner. I want to show you something before I do the liner. I want to show you the black. You see? I made this pattern up myself. I decided that I wanted to get an inch. If I show you this, this is an inch wide, okay? I had to have a strip here and a strip here. And I wanted each strip to be an inch wide. Can you see that? Okay, I think you can. I wanted each strip to be an inch wide. In order for that to happen, I had to allow for 1/4 seam allowance. So when I sewed it to this material, I'm losing a 1/4 of an inch here. And then when I put the 2 pieces together, I'm losing another 1/4 of an inch. So if I want this to be an inch, I needed to make it 1.5 inches to have enough for my seam allowance. Now cutting the strips, the black strips, is just a little bit trickier. I have to put these materials aside so I don't lose them. I'm going to use this tray for my project tray. And that's the panels. And now I've got to cut these strips. I'm putting the top strip also. Can you see that top strip? No, you can't see it. All right. Oh, I'm driving myself crazy. See, this top panel is also an inch. But, and so I had to allow for 1/4 of an inch here and 1/4 of an inch here. So that means all my panels are going to be an 1.5 inches wide. The only difference is, I mean, not the panels, but the strips. The only difference is my side strips are going to be 11 inches. And my top strip is going to be 10. I did all this math already. It's complicated. You could probably do the math yourself. Same thing with this black material. Only I want this black material. I need 1.5 inch strips, and because I need them to be so long, it makes more sense. Because see, if I cut these 11, because I need this to be, one of them needs to be 11, well, 4 of them needs to be 11. But you see, this is the same thing as the other. This material, now this material really is almost, no it isn't, look. See how it's tricking me? It's not, this doesn't show up. Let me put it, this is not the same, there you go. See this, there's a difference. This doesn't come all the way up. That's why you have to cut the selvage edge, is to get it straight. So I'm only going to be able to get 22 inches out of this. So I have decided that I'm going to cut these by 1.5 inch strips. And then I will be able to get 4 11 inch, which is what I need for my side strips. I need 1 here, I need 1 here, 1 here, and 2 on the back. So I need 4. So the same thing with the panel. If I cut this 1.5 inches, I'm going to be able to get 4. I'm still going to need another one for 10 inch long, and I'll make an extra one, and that will go to my next bag. See how I save material? I think ahead. I realize I'm going to make another bag, so I go ahead and cut it the way I can get the most out of it. There are other things you have to think about too. Is I lost my train of thought. Oh, the liner. When you cut the liner, which is this material, when you cut the liner, it's going to have to be, this is also the same size, but the liner is going to be the entire width of this, because I'm not going to do this fancy work on the inside of the liner. So the liner itself has to be 10.5 by 12 inches. Our next video, when I do this, I'm going to have these measurements written out. I'm going to have the material cut and show you what I've done so that you can catch up with me. But the liner has to be 10.5 by 12 inches. And we'll go through the same process. It's going to be a little trickier on this, because did you hear what I said? I said 12 inches. Now we've already learned that we can't get 24 inches. I don't think. Let me see if I can get 24 inches. I'm going to bring this all the way down to make sure I've got it all the way down to the bottom. And bring it all the way up here, and nope. That selvage is big and thick. It goes all the way to here. I can only get I can only get 42 inches out of that. So if I want I only can get 42 inches out of that. So if I want 12, that's 24. That's not going to work. So I've got to cut this, assuming I've got to cut this 12, because that's the only way I'm going to be able to get it. And that means I'm going to have to cut the length. The length. This is going to have to go 10 and a half. So I'll cut this. I'm going to cut this 12 inches. And I'll cut this. I'm going to, see it's doubled. So I'll have 10 and a half. And then I go up here to, I'll just barely make it. See, I'll just make it to there, 10 and a half. And the white, again, will be showing in the seam. It will be in the seam allowance. It won't be showing. So I'll still be able to make 4. I'll still be able to get 2 tote bags out of this one. That's going to work great. I'm going to let you stop here if you want to, but I'm going to let the camera roll and finish doing these cuttings that I was telling you about. I'm going to do the liner first since I've got it queued up. This is all that, look at these measurements. I kind of drew a diagram here. If you can stop. This is the measurements after it's done. The top, no, down here, the finished side. That's how I figured out the top strip. But the finished side, it's 11 by 9.5. But if you want to consider, but it's going to be boxed. If you box it, you're going to have 2 inches taken up with the box. So it's going to be 11 by 8 by 2. And this size is the exact size you need to put in 1 BY&V and 1 Fossilized Customs. How about that? You can make your own book bag for your BY&V and your Fossilized Customs. I'm going to keep the camera rolling. I'm going to let you watch me do this. I'll keep talking. Some of you have never done anything like this, and I want to tell you, when I first started, I just wanted to sew something. I didn't know what it was. So I went to this quaint little quilt shop, and I'm so glad I did. Oh, I need to pull this up. I forgot. I need to come up here because I'm going to make this. I decided I'm going to have to cut this 12. I went to this quaint little quilt shop, and they sold me everything I needed to get started. She told me about the rotary cutter, how to use a rotary cutter, and she sold me materials and zippers and the cutting mat. I bought this measuring thing. I had to go to Walmart to get that shower suction cup. And then, I was buying all my material there. I know I was paying more for the material than that if I'd shopped around or bought online, but I liked the personal service. And do you know, they had to play that thing on us with that COVID, and the store had to shut down. They couldn't stay open. They just shut their doors. They said, I'm not going to do it. And it was sad because I got that personal feeling, and they had sewing lessons. They were quilters, and they had quilting lessons, and it just felt good. What I do with my cutter, it just felt good to be with people. You know, it's kind of like being in a library. You almost feel like you can absorb the knowledge just being in the library. But just being out around these people, and the people, the buyers, the customers, I could turn around and ask one of them, "What do you think about these two colors being together?" And they'll tell me. They would tell me. Says, "No, I think you better be better going off with this other color." If it was me. And this one lady said, you should always make your liner a light color. But sometimes a light color for this material, it just wouldn't look right if I had a white or tan or any other color. Even blue doesn't look, this is such strange material. I just loved it. And so I tried to make the liners light, but I couldn't on this one. And I just love purple. And purple is a royal color, as well, traditionally considered to be a royal color. What have I done? What have I done? Okay. All right, now what I've done here is I better quit talking. That was my 12-inch. Now I get to tell you what I was talking about with the fold. Okay, now I know that the fold, I know that this material is, I only need 10.5 inches. No, I think I go all the way to the edge with this, don't I? I'm gonna go 10.5. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I'm dyslexic. I have to double check my work. And I think that's 10.5, isn't it? 10.5 and 10.5. Ask your student. That would be 21. That's a beautiful sunset. I'm sorry, I got distracted. That would be 21. So I'm going to go out here to the 21 inch. And here's what I was going to show you about the fold. I'm going to cut this as short as long as I can, because I think I can eke out like 1/4 of an inch. Yes. And I'll show you my little favorite trick. It's not going to make that much difference on this project, but I'm going to come up here and cut it out 1/4 of an inch past the 21. Just cutting my selvage off. Can you still see that? Yes. Just cutting my selvage off here. I'm giving myself an extra 1/4 of an inch. And this time, I'm not going to have any white left over. Ah, daggone it. Oh boy, I really, really need to change that. Before I do anything else, that's the next thing I'm going to do. Is I might have another blade, but I go through those blades so much, I'm always nicking the blade. And then I have to get another one. And they're a pain in the neck. All right, remember that 1/4 of an inch? If I start cutting from this end, from the not folded end, if I start cutting from here, I'm going to come up here to 10.5, and then 10.5 from that will be at this 21, and I'll cut that fold off. Now, if I had a lot of extra material, whatever I had left over, if I leave it in the fold, it'll be doubled. Rather than have 2 pieces cut off at this end, I'll have 1 piece cut off at this end, and it'll be a lot bigger than it would be if I cut it off at the fold. So I'm just going to cut this fold off right here at the 21 inches. See that? Yep. All right. Measure twice, cut once. Sometimes I can compensate the dullness by pressing harder. I think I've got a, here they are. You can get extra blades. I wonder if I've got one in there. I have an extra blade. I'm going to show you how to change the rotary blade. All right? All I did was cut that corner off. When you change the rotary blade, the lady showed me the best thing to do. This is, let me get you up close. Let me get you closer. The lady in the quilt shop, she showed me, she said, you'll get confused, especially if you're dyslexic like I am. So you want to hold on to this side, unscrew it here, lefty-loosey. Now, lay that piece here so you don't lose it. Take this piece off. See, this is the order in which they came off. See that? Don't get them mixed up. Now the other side is this little thing that was holding the blade on. I'm getting rid of this. In fact, I'm going to put it in here since it's my last one. I usually wrap tape around them before I throw them away, but this one I'm just going to throw it away in the container. Don't touch that edge. Don't let your homeschool students do this. Don't let your teenager or anybody under a teenage do this, because this is really dangerous. And don't lose these little pieces, or you'll be buying another cutter. Righty-tighty. You have to hold on to this side to snug it up. Now, I'll show you the difference between using a dull blade and a sharp blade. Oh, it's always a delight when I change my blades. I'm such a cheapskate. I use them as much as I can. Okay, I'm wanting 10 and a half, 10 and a half. Okay, that's 12 inches wide. I'm making sure, because one time I was sure I was doing the width and I was supposed to be cutting the length. Now watch this. You don't have to press down at all. One rip and there you go. See the difference? Ta-da! That's the difference in using a sharp blade and not.